So a bit of housekeeping before we start. Welcome to the closing plenary for this year's APRICOT. Before we get going, I'd like to announce that we have some reading glasses from the social from last night. I think I did ask who they belong to, but no one has come to pick them up yet. So I still have them today. If they belong to you, or if you know who they belong to, please do come through and pick them up. I'll have them throughout. So at this time, to kick us off, will be the closing keynote. Really excited to listen to this one myself. I'd like to invite up Hanna Suominen from the Australian National University to come and give us our closing keynote for this evening.
Isn't it fun to see my research topic emerge in front of my eyes? So today we are going to talk a little bit about speech recognition as well. And I can bet that with my Finnish accent, we will start to see quite interesting things there. Before we get going, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land where we meet, the present, the former and the emerging leaders. This is something that I take quite passionately myself. I have had the pleasure to call Australia my home for 10 or 11 years now. So, today we are going to talk about health informatics, networked information systems in healthcare that are not only networked, but also smart, so machine intelligence there. Any healthcare professionals in the audience? Someone who happens to be a doctor or a nurse? Let's have a little bit of introduction to this situation. Over there. So we are in acute care, so intensive care or emergency care room. Typically in acute care, when the patient comes in, they are pretty ill, and the clinicians have a minute or two to make a decision. Otherwise, we have somebody who might die. So they have to be really fast in their decision making, and as well as in accessing the relevant data to make that decision. So here's a patient coming in, and the clinicians are suspecting something, so that's the question mark. They are suspecting that something's going on with the patient's heart. And this condition, pulmonary arterial hypertension, is an interesting one because the best practice guidelines for that condition keep on changing all the time. So there's quite a lot of literature around. So if I go to my favorite search engine for medical literature, PubMed, and I type search there, I get a lot of hits. So PubMed has almost 30 million publications indexed. Every single day we get more than 2,000 new papers added there, so we are facing an information overload. With this search, I will be getting about 11,000 papers. And if I put there some limits, like I want to see only reviews, I will still get the overwhelming 2,500 publications enlisted. If I say reviews within the last 5 years, I get almost 1,000. So if I have 2 minutes time to consider the patient case and make a decision, I really do not have time to start reading this literature to know what is the best practice. So let's talk about what the search systems, the clever ones, could look like. Somebody has once said to me that machine learning is a little bit like having a baby. It takes so much love and care and sleepless nights to raise that child, and I think that that's pretty clever. So we have to try, and we will get there. And how do we get the models? We get them from that modeling of the data, giving examples, giving model solutions, and correcting the systems. So today, what this talk is about, we are talking about what these smart systems look like, how are they changing the world, And in particular, our focus is on the human level, so the applications that enable people, in this case being the patients and the healthcare professionals, to understand the information and make decisions based on that information. These new technologies, they can really make or break a day. So this is a typical situation when I start my day. Having a professional in front of a computer system, this picture is from 2005, and she's, oh my God, I don't know what to do, and having a million post-it notes next to it. So not a very good situation to be at when having that 2 minutes of time to make a decision. So we start with machine intelligence first in healthcare. We have some examples, definitions, methods, and timelines, because I think that this topic probably needs in this community a little bit of an introduction. Then we go through what's relevant and topical at the moment, and move on to the networking side of these intelligent information systems. So we have again a few examples, not that much theory or definitions, because I assume that this community knows much more about those than I do, and then we conclude in the end. So let's get going. Let's consider the case of a clinical handover. So the best practice there is that you have a patient, and every time when one set of nurses is leaving work and other nurses are coming to work, they have a handover discussion at the patient's bedside. So they tell what's going on with this given patient, what's the care plan, what has happened before, if there's some topics that one needs to pay attention to, and what's the overall status at the clinic. There's that overwhelming body of medical literature, for example, in PubMed, that informs these discussions. But then there's a lot of information, practical evidence in the electronic health records as well, plus typically the uncaptured spoken information. So what did we do? We decided in about 2011 to run a research project on that. So how about if we try to capture that spoken information by putting little microphones on nurses so that we can record their voice, then use speech recognition, like the system in here, to convert that spoken narrative into writing, and then information extraction or text classification to find snippets or spans of text to populate a form, so that the nurses can quickly read it through and revise it if needed, and then store it in the electronic health records. However, there's a little issue here. So in healthcare, I cannot start pulling rabbits from my hat. Instead, I have to use proper science, my doctoral hat from Finland. So I need to describe or try to describe the processing method and its settings as well as I possibly can, because otherwise there's no transparency, there's no trust. The same applies to the model solutions to the system, so the data and how the model solutions have been annotated in that data set as a gold standard. Then I need to describe the evaluation method and its settings with very strong rigor. And finally, the results as well. So we scientists are very good in telling our story to our audience in papers and hiding those negative findings and things that don't need to clutter the paper. And if one is working in business, quite often the story is quite different than the long and hard work that was leading to having that system, so those sleepless nights with the baby. So, how do the model solutions take place in the nursing handover case? We have the audio recording, so that's the wobbly lines in the beginning, and then we have human-made transcriptions as the model solution, and what we are trying to do is to set up an automated model that can go from that audio signal to the transcriptions automatically. Then the next step to fill out the form would be to connect the free text and text with highlights so that the system learns to highlight all those words that populate a given heading. And finally, from these automated processing outcomes, we will get situational awareness and decision support in place. So, the steps: voice recording, speech recognition, information extraction, and to recap, we have talked about trustworthiness and scientific rigor. So we should be using both extrinsic and extrinsic evaluation methods. Evaluate statistically both the speech recognition and information extraction component in isolation. So how well do they do? Then probably also consider if the errors multiply, so what happens when we go from speech recognized text to actual filled out form. And then also consult the clinicians about the feasibility of the overall process. So do co-development and design with them, or at least user studies. So that's what we did. In 2011, we went to a clinical teaching ward and invited some clinicians there to evaluate our approach. We showed them a range of voice recorders or devices that have a voice recording capability and some different types of microphones. At that time, not everything was networked yet, so we had MP3 players there as well and voice recorders, and people already then recognized that it's really clumsy to go and move the data from that device. On the other hand, those were also the days when I was being asked to go and do my natural language processing research in a cupboard that machines were not connected to internet at all. So it was in our research permissions that I had to process things without connection to outside world, simply to make sure that these privacy-sensitive details don't escape. What did the nurses say? They really loved the tablets and the smartphones because they saw that they can do both the data capturing and proofing and revising on same device. So they loved it that they had one device only, and that it was actually network connected so that they didn't have to use a USB key. Not a surprise, they preferred the lapel microphones, and money didn't talk here. It was $5 at that time, that little noise-canceling microphone, and that really did the magic compared to microphones that were thousands and thousands of dollars worth. And the recorder really didn't matter, so it was just a question of having a noise-canceling microphone in place. So what did we do after that? The form filling? The nurses went to me that this sounds like a really good idea, and I can see how this can contribute to the patient care, and I'm excited about this, but Hanna, you have gone mad. That's way too hard. The speech recognition will never work, in particular because 80% of Australian nurses are born overseas, like me, and have accent in their speech. However, I was very positively surprised. So with experiments, with only half an hour to an hour of transcribed text and the audio recording to train the model, we got from 90 to 99% correctness. And with 4 minutes only, from 73 to 90% correctness. And in the last 10 years, these methods have improved dramatically. And that was just an off-the-shelf tool that I could go and buy that was meant for clinical domain. The form filling, that was our research topic ourselves, and that proved to be the tricky bit. So we have been working on it for quite some time already and still keep on improving. And the challenge there is not the big data, it's the small data bottleneck. So we have very small amounts of data to set up the system. Machine learning, it's not a new area. It started in 1950s already. And interestingly enough, from a really fun area being gaming or games, checkers in this case. And I think that that's the big definition of machine learning community compared to a lot of other subfields in computer science. It's a lot of fun. And one can see that playfulness in the groups and teams that I work with. The methods, they have evolved quite a bit. The challenge of the latest methods, the deep learning method, is that one would need to have big data, a lot of training data to set them up. However, this field is getting further and further. Another challenge there is the trustworthiness. So quite often these methods, they are black boxes, and it's really difficult to know what's going on them compared to the 1980s and 90s decision tree type of methods. So where are we now? One of the cool methods is called transfer learning. And again, let's go back to the example about the baby. So how transfer learning works in natural language processing. First, we teach our machine to understand English, the general language, usually using Wikipedia. After that, we start to tweak the model to medical domain. We could use that PubMed, for example. And then, after we have tweaked the model towards medical, we go towards clinical. So, for example, I2B2 has a method there. And bit by bit, we get the model transferred from general English via medical English to clinical English, and hopefully towards that nursing field. And for our nursing handover, we had only 101 records. Each one of them was about 200 words long, so not a lot of text at all to tweak the model. And we got quite a bit of improvement. And we didn't do this only ourselves, so we did some software engineering ourselves. We are the line number 3. Then we challenged the world, so ran a hackathon, gave the machine learning system all the features, all the code to people if they wanted to build on it. And people did some quite remarkable work on it. So for example, the German team, that is the number 3 on the table over there, they did some really fancy information retrieval, so post-processing by doing searches online to fix the records. And what did we do after that? Then we applied transfer learning with the insights from the hackathon that we got, and got a lot better performance. And then we still have been improving the performance by putting the latest in natural language processing. So not getting better and better only, but using the transformer model called BERT, which seems to be giving the last little percentage boost to pretty much every application. So BERT is one of the most timely methods at the moment. And I'm really encouraging anyone to participate in the hackathons that we are having. So this year we have an information extraction, so form filling task in Spanish, and then consumer health search, so building search engines for people to find easy to understand trustworthy data from the internet running. So that was the topic number 1, and now we go to the part 2 of the talk. So what happens when we make these smart systems also connected to the internet? Some examples, again, timely topics there, and finally we conclude the talk. So clinical means that we involve a patient, and the patient really should sit there in the heart of the healthcare. And it's an ecosystem built around the patient. So we are starting to have smart homes. Initially these came for elderly people, but now it's coming more and more common in our everyday homes. We have some devices for monitoring and other ones for supporting decision making. We have call centers, we have people who look after us and the community around us, hospitals, health centers, and even governance in place. So let's go to the examples. So this is me when I moved to Canberra in 2010. It looks very pretty with the balloon spectacular. One can have a nice outdoor life. OECD has ranked us really highly, and I think many people are like me, that they grow their roots there quite fast. But can anyone guess what actually brought me to Canberra? Kangaroos. Not kangaroos. It was sensor technologies. So literally putting our health in our hands, not the Fitbit's likes, but something else. So you can see some effects of aging and history there. So this is from the postdoctoral project that brought me to Canberra. No, we are not playing it. Oh, there we go.
NICTA is also working with the Australian Institute of Sport, developing small, smart devices to collect and transmit biometric data and monitor athletes' performance.
We needed some pretty sophisticated technology and software to actually help coaches and athletes understand what they're doing while they're doing it. Really taking two peak bodies with critical masses of expertise, combining those to get a result that no one else could get.
World has changed quite a bit in 10 years, hasn't it? So that looks very outdated and clumsy and big technologies now. But at the time, it was really cutting edge. Today, where those sport technologies have taken me, it's a project called Our Health in Our Hands. And this is about going back to medicine. So the ANU launched in 2017 a $10 million per project for 5 years, SHIMA, called Grand Challenges, and we were the lucky first ones to win it. And what we are trying to do is personalize medical care with technologies and precision drugs that make healthcare more affordable, more scalable, and sustainable in our very big country. So at a glance, how does Australian healthcare look like? We have very good long lives, healthy lives in general. However, we have one of the most expensive healthcare systems. It's also a big country, so a continent. So if one happens to live in rural area, one can easily be 6 hours of flying away from the closest hospital. So there's quite a big inequality between people based on where they live. And with Indigenous Australians, for example with diabetes, one has twice as much diabetes as with other people. What's problematic there is also lack of access. So one needs to get to hospital to get, for example, an MRI done. So if one has multiple sclerosis, MS, one needs to have brain MRI quite often or another MRI quite often. 77, this was the latest, fanciest technology. 2017, it's a lot smaller, but it's still not a portable, small device that you can take home. It's very expensive to run, difficult to access, and for example, people living with MS, they get really fatigued after an experiment with this big device. So access is still an issue. We have 2 target diseases in Ohio. Multiple sclerosis, MS is one of them, and diabetes is another one. What we are doing, we have a rich amount of scientific collaboration, everything from bioinformatics, machine learning, big data, to biomarkers, medical sciences and engineering going on there. In big data program, where we focus on networking and machine intelligence, our goal is to identify the subtypes of these diseases. Then with MS, one of the biggest things is the uncertainty that people have to live with when being diagnosed. So one doesn't know if one has 6 months of healthy life ahead or 40 years. And it can be really stressful living not knowing what's going to happen in the future. So we try to predict this prognosis a little bit better and improve the accuracy of diagnosis. Improve also the monitoring aspects so that one wouldn't have to go back to the hospital for that MRI. Or if you suffer from diabetes, in particular with children, it's not very nice to draw bloods multiple times a day. So can we do something to improve the situation, and how to establish trust to these systems? So the goal from those big devices to something that is miniaturized, something that doesn't require drawing blood, something that can be analyzed by a wearable sensor like that Fitbit or the swimming sensor, something similar to that, or something that can analyze your saliva, sweat, breath, something that is not blood. I already mentioned we have 2 target diseases that supplement each other, MS and diabetes. In MS, the biggest challenge is to find the right medication for the right person. So pairing up the treatments with people is the hardest part there. With diabetes, the issue is the early diagnosis. So diabetes starts affecting our body in bad ways from day one, and typically people don't get diagnosed for a long period of time. And at that time, when you get diagnosed, there's traces in the body that one cannot revert back. So one of the concepts that we have been playing around, I talked about saliva. So imagine that instead of drawing those bloods from your little child multiple times a day, you have an electronic toothbrush, and all of us should brush our teeth twice a day. So how about that toothbrush measures from your breath or saliva your blood glucose levels and sends them through your tablet or smartphone to a data server, and from there to a research database and the clinician can communicate back. So that's one of the concepts that we have been playing for a couple of years now with. The SIA triad, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, is in the heart of this one too. Of course, the decision makers, they need to have an access to the right information at the right time to make the right decision. That comes without a say. And again, in Australia, in rural areas in particular, inability to connect in a stable way to a network is a big issue. Integrity, the data should be correct at any given time. There might be issues with that one as well, with poor access. And then only the right people should have an access to the correct data set. And I'm quite sure that many of us have seen tabloid newspapers about famous politicians with hard passes, for example, that have been left open for hacking. So quite scary. What we are studying is what is the clinical effectiveness of these technologies? Can they be used as biomarkers? What are the limitations and how to address those limitations? Do these technologies allow better fit between a given person and their care? And what do people want? So the really nice thing in Ohio is that we work from day one to the last delivery together with the patients and the clinicians. So we truly do co-design and development. So to wrap up and summarize the lessons learned, what we are doing, we are gathering the data from the sensor technologies, then we build the models and get the predictions going on. And all of this requires rapid prototyping, cycles of improvement, and we can get to better and better and better. And like I said, the nice thing is that this is truly interdisciplinary, also across all of the organizations that are contributing. And here is some evidence, and big thanks to people involved in the project. So it's over 50 of us from the campus working together with people living with these conditions and their carers. And to summarize the talk, I talked about the art and science or crafting of the machine learning methods. And I think that this quote, which is not actually about machine learning, summarizes why I enjoy my work so much. It's little discoveries every day and bigger discoveries every now and then. So when one keeps on improving these methods, one actually becomes really good in not only problem solving, but finding the right problems to solve. And with that note, I'm welcoming some questions and comments, and I want to welcome everybody to join the shared tasks that we are running. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Suominen. Any questions for the professor?
Terry Sweetser from IX Australia. Welcome to Melbourne. I wanted to ask you an ethical question. What advice would you give to us, a room full of network engineers, about the privacy and the sanctity of the information that our networks and our systems will be carrying with this data?
That's a really timely and good comment. So every country is a little bit different. I have worked on this topic quite a long time now, both in Europe and with colleagues from the US, also here in Australia. So one needs to follow really carefully about what each jurisdiction is saying about their data. In Australia, the patient data is owned, or the health data is owned by both the patients and the clinicians. So for example, when working on the topic of diabetes, care in schools, the organizational barriers between healthcare organizations and schools come to play. So for communication, it's quite a challenge. I would advise bringing in someone who's expert in this topic to the board. Also, the clinicians and other stakeholders have a wealth of information. Australian government is developing policies and guidelines. They had a consultation just in the end of 2019 on this. Data 61 of SARO, where I also work, just released a report on it, and there's also some quite new policy advices going on the internet. So some of this advice is from the artificial intelligence machine learning community, some of it comes from networked information systems communities, and some from health sciences and medical. And the challenge really is that there are 3 separate schools of thought, and how to bring all of those areas together, it's quite tricky and takes a lot of time and care. I think that I opened a can of worms with that comment.
Yes.
Warren Finch from APNIC. Just a question about you're advising doctors and clinicians to use this technology, but then that means they have to be up to date with that technology. I know people that have had recent pacemakers put in, and the doctors had advised them to have pacemakers that have been recalled. What about that?
Well, that's a challenging question, and I have seen people answer it quite differently. So again, these community differences. A couple of years ago, I went to ICML, so International Conference in Machine Learning, and there was a tutorial or a keynote speech about healthcare informatics and healthcare systems. And how the presenter started was that raise your hand if you would rather have AI diagnose you than a person. And to my great shock in that community, I would say over 90% of people were raising their hand. I was one of those who was like, no, I would prefer my GP who has known me for a long time and knows what's going on with me, possibly supported by AI, so technology supported and assisted. It really depends on the technology, I would say. The field is going forward really fast, and what I love seeing is how much effort people are investing in developing these new technologies, how many research grants are out there, how many commercialization or industry grants are out there. So I think that we are seeing a big, rapid growth path or learning curve, and more mature systems are coming there. For clinical or medical advice, I'm not a medical professional, so that I cannot give, but I would be open to these systems.
I think the point I was getting to is that doctors focus on the medical side, but they're putting technology into a person and they can't answer the technical questions. And that is a problem, especially if there's future upgrades that need to happen and you ask that question.
So what's quite interesting is that, for example, in the Netherlands, there's a training program for technically trained clinicians. So there's master's and bachelor's programs in that area. And I think that that's something that we need to factor in. That's also one of the reasons why I'm quite passionate to train the next generation of medical professionals so that they actually know what these technologies are about. And when I'm teaching networked information systems in ANU, what I'm always trying to bring in is the clinical or healthcare context to people who are going to work as networked information systems developers or researchers in the future. So it requires co-design and co-development and really, really good communication skills.
Any other questions? I suppose one from my side, when I saw your example about the toothbrush, what do you make of the smartphone manufacturers and the smartwatches and all of that and the health apps getting involved in, medical diagnosis or medical stuff?
So I think that, again, the best collaborations happen and best outcomes happen when one does things together. So for example, in the nursing handover project, we're working on with a leading commercial provider there. I think the same with the toothbrush example. It would be working together with those who provide the networks and the devices rather than us building those ourselves. We have quite a few companies and organizations involved in the project, but it's still a proof of concept stage, so we are still working on the science side. And as soon as we have proof of concept ready that this might actually work, it's time to talk.
All right. If there's no more questions, thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you.
If I could just ask, Professor, if I could just ask you to stand by for your generous words of wisdom, I'd like to present you with a little token of our gratitude. Excellent. At this time, I would like to invite up Philip on behalf of APRICOT to acknowledge our sponsors, as well as Zoe to help me with some of the hand stuff. All right, so our sponsors, without whom this would not have happened. First up, we'd like to recognize our host and opening social sponsor, the Internet Association of Australia. Up. Where's the paparazzi? There we go. Thank you so much. Our platinum sponsor, Adrex. Yeah. Thank you so much. Our gold sponsor, the London Internet Exchange. Anybody? Are they gone? Okay. Our other gold sponsor, VeriSign. Nope, gone also. Our closing social sponsor, the Asia Pacific Network Information Center. Very formal. Thank you. Our appearing social sponsor, APNIC, who aren't here. Our coffee cart sponsor, Netflix. During Terry's presentation, we saw that the highest number of associations was around the coffee cart. Always. Thank you. Our RPI community sponsor, APNIC, with APIX. Thank you so much. go. Our community sponsors, AWS, who aren't here. Facebook. Oh, are they here? Oh, there you go. Oh. Almost didn't take that one with you, did you? Thank you. Facebook, community sponsor. FreeBSD Foundation, community sponsor. Google as well. ICANN, community sponsor. Thank you very much. Again, community sponsor, Internet Society. And another community sponsor, Microsoft. Anybody? No? Okay. Another community sponsor, the Network Startup Resource Center. I shall give it to the Network Startup Resource Center. And last and definitely not least, Asia Connect /TEIN, community sponsor. No? All right, moving on to our silver sponsors at Tokyo. Yes, there we go. Thank you so much. Alita Networks. Nope. All right. Next, silver sponsor, AM6. Also gone. Hilco Stream Bank, silver sponsor. Nope. Kentic. Nope. Okay. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Excellent. Silver sponsor, Megaport. Yes, that's how we do it. Thank you. Next silver sponsor, NetScout. Nope, okay. Next silver sponsor, Nexus Guard. Next silver sponsor, Paracom. Thank you so much. Next silver sponsor, PCCW Global. Yep. Okay. Next, Telia Carrier. No. Okay. Next silver sponsor, Telstra. We're in the land, so. Our Tech Girls social sponsor, Akamai.
Yeah.
Thank you. We shall move on to our broad sponsors, APJI. APG. No? Okay. Next bronze sponsor, DKIX. Next bronze sponsor, the orange people, Flex Optics.
Thank you.
I guess you can't give them a t-shirt, can you? Next bronze sponsor, JPIX. Thank you so much. Next bronze sponsor, MyIX. Any of the Malaysians? No? Last but not least, bronze sponsors, SGIX. No. Okay. Network sponsors, Cloudflare. So much fanfare. Thank you. Network sponsors, Extreme. Yep. Network sponsor, Focus. Guess just give all those to Terry. Yeah, and that's it for you, Philip. Yep, thank you very much. Replacing Philip promptly would be one Paul Wilson. Paul will be assisting to hand out the souvenirs to the sponsors on behalf of APNIC. APNIC AGM sponsors, CNIC. No one from CNIC? Nope. JPNIC? Yep. Ah. Next, APNIC AGM sponsor, Laris. Nope. APNIC AGM sponsor, last but not least, TWNIC. Are they here? No? Right. And then final one for you, Paul, I promise. APNIC Hackathon sponsor, PH Colo. Nope, they're gone. Thank you so much. And thank you once again to all our sponsors, without whom this would not be possible. We appreciate your support year in and year out. For now, I would like, though, to invite Narelle Clark, General Manager for the IAA, to come and give us a few closing remarks. Thank you, Zoe and co.
I can only just make out my notes, but they're only there for sort of inspiration anyway, really. First of all, I wanted to do was to thank everybody really for helping to make this thing turn out the way that it has. It's gone so well, and it's just been wonderful to be here. Particularly my team here have put the network together, Terry, Nick, who's already on a plane back, Washif and Marcus, and Abby, who I think is outside still running around. Of course, Molly and Ollie and Phil, the rest of the organising committee, they've just been outstanding, particularly as we rolled through Australia's Black Summer. We were putting this together as the nation started to burn, and we were really worried that people would just not want to come because they would think that Melbourne was on fire. And at some times, I know Melbourne was literally choking on the smoke that came through as part of it all. And then, of course, we got hit with the coronavirus afterwards. So we just updated the FAQ on the travelling information to look, it will be okay with the bushfire smoke. It will probably clear by the time you get here, but hopefully the fires will be out. Then we got coronavirus. And now, of course, half the country is flooded. And we saw some of the storms of that as well. But here you all are, and it's just been wonderful that you've come here and supported Australia and supported the whole region in our efforts to make the internet a better place, a bigger, stronger, better internet as always. I know for my own personal career as a network engineer that APRICOT and the NOG meetings and the other associated meetings have been a vital part of me staying up to date and staying connected with my friends and colleagues. And some of the things that have come through this week, which have really reinforced the importance of security to me, the RPKI work, the manners work that we need to, keep our households, do our housekeeping, do our network housekeeping, and make sure that we adhere to best current practices. DevOps and automation has not just become the norm, but it's just become something that you take for granted and you just do. It's just like, oh, where's the code? We put it over there, we pull it down and it all works. That sort of stuff is just great. One thing I can't believe too is that we, after all this time in my career, we're still talking about rolling out IPv6. I just can't, I'm shocked. And then of course, Terry today, I'm gonna call you out on this, mate. You said putting it up as an IPv6 only Wi-Fi segment, or at least just an SSID, was a crazy idea. It's not a crazy idea, Terry. It's something we should be able to just do, take for granted and get on with it. But anyway, the final thing I need to thank you all for is for just being such great friends and such a great community. And sure, we do tell each other off, we do call each other out. Sometimes we can be really rude to each other. But we do usually have ideas as taking precedence over other things. Good ideas take precedence over the personal, the standing, or maybe that's not quite the right way I want to put it. But ideas are paramount, and competence and doing things well and ultimately looking after each other and being a strong networking community is just really, really important to us all. So on behalf of the host organisation, I want to thank you all for coming and for making it a great APRICOT. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Narelle. I lied, Paul. I will ask you one more time to come up. Please invite Paul Wilson to come up to give us a few comments as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I'll just start by agreeing with Narelle. It's been a great week. A lot of great talks and presentations. I'm not basing that so much on my own experience because I don't get to enough of the presentations myself. There's so much going on, but I base it on what I've heard from others, and all I've heard has been good feedback about the event. And I'm really glad to see that. At APRICOT each year we have an APNIC conference as well as part of the program. So APNIC 49 ended earlier today with our annual members meeting. We had, as usual, an election for Executive Council members. These are the board members who are in charge of APNIC and who will be in charge for the next year and more using our new online voting system. That was great because it resulted in a record turnout. I know we'll be publishing some figures shortly, but I'd like to congratulate the newly elected and re-elected members, Simone, Cams and Archie. Congratulations, it's going to be fantastic to work with you over the next year and more. Thanks also to the outgoing two members, Rajesh and Benjamin. Rajesh had 2 terms as the secretary of the EC. Benjamin had a term, but thanks to both of them for their service over the years. As Narelle said, the preparations for this conference were pretty challenging. We've had heat waves and droughts and bushfires and floods, and that's just Melbourne. I mean, all of that can happen in one day. Actually, that's what this place is like. But seriously, one really big disappointment of this week has been the absence of our friends from mainland China. So we would have had at least 40 of our colleagues from China, also from a few pretty big companies who couldn't make it. So I do hope they've been able to follow online, and I do hope we'll see everyone next time. Excuse me. Every year I'm really inspired by the way this community takes time out to come together here at APRICOT. I mean, we here who gather here are those who are operating and growing and building and protecting the internet, and our cooperation together is really part of the internet way of networking, as the Internet Society is putting it these days, and that's the way it's been since the very early days. So really to think that APRICOT has been part of that culture and that process for 25 years now is really something to be proud of. And David Conrad, one of the founders of APRICOT and of APNIC, in fact, he spoke this week about that, and really it's a huge credit to him, to the early founders, those who really worked hard on APRICOT, both for the original initiative, for the idea, and for everything that's happened since. I was reminded recently, at the beginning of this year, by another interesting anniversary, which was the fact that 20 years ago we had the threat of the millennium bug, and that was threatening to end the world, and it didn't, due to the work that was pretty much largely invisible, based on cooperation of many people, and some I guess here would still remember that. The thing is, you don't get a lot of credit for simply averting a crisis. In fact, there's still people who are moaning about the millennium bug and sort of saying that even after all the effort and the time and the money, nothing went wrong. Well, good job. So that's the thing. It's not a bug. It's a feature. And the work that we do here is really quite similar to that, because keeping the wheels of the internet turning is sort of taken for granted. It's taken for granted that the thing just works 24/7 for 365 days a year. And so even while we're busting our guts with growing the network, with deploying technologies and products with attacks and extra little bits and pieces like the IPv6 transition. You know, we've got to keep the thing running the whole time, and we don't hear much about it when things are going perfectly well, but we surely hear about it when they don't. And that's the same that's been going on in the field of internet governance, because the governance of the internet has also been going on over all this time, and people have been talking about internet governance for the last 20 years as though something really desperately needs fixing. But actually, for 20 years, since that discussion started, the internet's been growing phenomenally and has been working. I mean, the discussion started before Facebook turned up, and yet this way of networking, including governance, has continued and supported that growth. The thing is, there's no test bed for the internet. It's built in real time, in real life, and it's governed and managed all the same while there are literally billions of people using it. And they said about IPv6 transition that it was like changing the engines while the plane is still flying. But that goes for the whole internet, because in fact every component of the internet has been changed, is being changed again and again, while the whole thing continues to work. And actually that's also while the plane is being hit by natural disasters and it's being shot at by enemies, and yet it's still going. So for the last 25 years, while APRICOT's been involved, it's been flying, and it's kept growing and succeeding beyond the most sort of optimistic forecasts, I guess, and honestly, there's no end in sight with just barely half of the world's population connected, and who knows what's going to be coming in the next 25 years. So I think it's really great to celebrate these invisible achievements, appreciate the innumerable disasters that don't actually happen because of the hard work and the cooperation that goes on here. It's all about collaboration and intellectual and professional dedication. So I'd better cooperate myself with the organisers and conclude this speech. There's been a lot of effort, so again, thanks to IAA and for the great welcome from them and from the others involved with organising this event. Thanks again to all the sponsors, this time from APNIC. We really appreciate the support. Thanks, Philip, for all your hard work, and to the APNOG board, APRICOT Working Group, and of course all the APNIC staff who've taken the short flight this time down from Brisbane to be here. I wanted to mention JPNIC especially, actually. We've had some sponsorship support from JPNIC this time, and it's really nice to see the NIRs of APNIC coming together to help us to build the skills and capacities in the region. Finally, to all of you, and not only, but in particular the APNIC members who support what APNIC is doing and help us to do that job. Thank you so much for participating so actively this week. So I do hope you have enjoyed this event. The next APNIC meeting, APNIC 50, will be held, as you may know, in Bangladesh in September. That's likely to be a big event. I was in Bangladesh just a couple of months ago and really blown away by the size of the community. These days it's nearly the second largest APNIC membership community, with nearly 1,000 members. They've got nearly 2,000 licensed ISPs. So that's a message in particular for the sponsors here. If you want to reach a big and growing community of internet technologists and companies, then Bangladesh is the place to do that. So again, thank you so much for being here. I will see you, and hope you have a great time at the closing social tonight, and a very safe trip home. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Paul. I would then, at this point, like to invite our APNIC board chair and our fearless leader, one Philip Smith. APNIC board chair.
I've never known Mark to be stage struck, but anyway. Okay, so I've made copious notes and I will kind of have to refer to them just so I don't get my numbers mixed up or the various other things mixed up. But so yes, that 25th APRICOT party last night seemed to be a pretty good event. People seemed to quite enjoy it. This venue was rather quiet this morning when I was wandering around, so I imagine people had a good night and sort of long lie-ins and nice late mid-morning breakfast and so forth. So one thing that did strike me were the signboards that we put up with all the APRICOT that we've had over the last 25 years. The early ones seemed to have only 1 or 2 signatures, or maybe 5 or 6 signatures on them. And some of those were from current members of the community, people like, well, David Conrad, Chehu, Sanjaya. Even I seem to have slipped onto some of those as well, and Paul has slipped onto some of those also, those early ones. It's really impressive to see that we have members of the community who have been supporting the internet industry for such a long time. Doesn't seem like 25 years when you look back at it, but I don't know. It seems to have gone pretty quickly. But yet, I look back at some of the photos. It's like, who are these youngsters who were involved in the whole thing? So I appreciate everybody who came along to the party last night, and for actually, staying right through to the end, getting up on the dance floor, signing the signboards, and so forth. As Narelle said, and as Paul said, we had quite a lot of challenges around fires, receiving the emails saying, Philip, Melbourne's on fire. Are you going to move APRICOT to another country? Australia is quite a big physical landmass. It's as big as the mainland United States. It easily consumes most of Western and Central Europe. Yet somehow people seem to think that this was a small place in Melbourne. Well, Melbourne wasn't on fire. I mean, the effect of the bushfires was disastrous for the country. The country will recover. The country will have to adjust to, well, the new challenges that we're all facing. But the weather's changed. We got the rain. Unfortunately, the rain was disastrous as well, and so the bits that were on fire now ended up being covered in water. So nothing comes simply in this land at all. We had challenges with visas. A lot of our delegates were denied visas despite our best efforts to support them. That was a great shame. Just very disappointing from the Secretariat point of view. We spent quite a lot of effort with delegates trying to help them to get visas to come here. And if that wasn't enough, then we had COVID-19. There's actually not a great deal of impact here in Australia. There are 15 confirmed cases. 8 of those have already been released from hospital. The other 7 are in recovery. But somehow it seems to have been that we got lumped in with, oh, you can't come here, it's too dangerous. As Paul mentioned, we greatly regret that our Chinese colleagues from the mainland China were unable to participate due to the Australian government's ban on travelers who either have transited or have sourced from mainland China. But following the World Health Organization advice, that was probably the best thing for the government here to do, and it certainly has limited the impact. Unfortunately, quite a few multinationals have decided that it's completely unsafe to come to Australia because of that, and their delegates were not able to attend either. So I would estimate we've taken a hit of probably about 100 participants to the event, which then leads me to the numbers. So for the whole event, we had 615 check-in. That includes the staff supporting the event. Of those, we had 108 for the workshops, including the instructors. I feel the workshops took the biggest hit, with some of our fellows not getting visas and many of our mainland Chinese delegates not able to participate in the workshops they had chosen. As for sponsors, we had a total of 47 sponsors and supporters. Again, as Mark was saying, this event is totally impossible without the support of sponsors. Or we could make the registration fee extraordinarily expensive, but that wouldn't be very popular with any of us either. So we really appreciate the support of sponsors. Many of these sponsors have been long-term, and we really appreciate everything that they do for the industry in the Asia-Pacific region. I'd like to thank our keynote speakers, David Conrad, one of the co-founders of APRICOT, Professor Mark Gregory from RMIT, and of course Professor Hanna Suominen from Australian National University. The keynotes are very important for the event. We try and have very diverse topics, current topics that are of interest to the community, sometimes challenging, sometimes controversial, sometimes looking backwards, sometimes gazing into the future. I think we managed to achieve all three with this particular APRICOT, so we appreciate our keynotes and the wisdom that they shared with us. And then starting at the beginning, I'd like to thank the workshop instructor team from all around the world who flew all the way to Australia. People look at the map and think, oh my gosh, what's it, 24 hours flying time from Europe, 14, 15 hours flying time from West Coast US. We are a long way from anywhere, and it is quite a big trip. Of course, our mission for APRICOT is to bring community infrastructure development around the whole Asia-Pacific region. This is an absolutely vast region. No other part of the world has such an extensive region to cover. It's very easy to do a NANOG in North America when coast-to-coast flying time is 5 hours. That's the same size as Australia. It's very easy to do a RIPE meeting in Europe. Again, the flying times are a few hours. For us here, Melbourne to Tokyo is what, 12 hours? If I want to fly from Brisbane to, or even Sydney to Mumbai non-stop, it's heading on for 14, 15 hours. And that's not even counting flying into the Pacific region. So it is quite extensive, and the commitment the workshop instructors show to come here is really something we appreciate. Thank you all presenters, the tutorial instructors, the session chairs. Thank you to the program committee. We had 27 members this year who've been working on the program since November. Our program committee come from all over the world, so Europe, North America, of course across Asia, pardon me, and the Pacific. Not all of them could participate on the weekly conference calls. Trying to find a call time where all of us could participate is impossible. But a lot of the program committee members work hard to find content, do their reviews, and that contributes greatly to putting together the quality program that we have seen. Thank you to Mark Tinker for being the program committee chair. Thank you to Mariana Novakovic for also being program committee chair. Mara couldn't be with us this time due to health, but we hope that we'll be able to see her along with Mark at APRICOT next year. But both Mark and Mara did a lot of work with chasing presenters again, and chasing them yet again to get papers submitted, papers updated and uploaded and so forth, ready for the program. We had 30 APRICOT fellows this year. Some were unable to come due to visa issues. Although we had 500 applications for the fellowship program. Again, most of them came from more Asia. We didn't have as many Pacific fellow applications as we expected. The fellowship program was aimed at folks from the Pacific. We were disappointed in some way that not enough of them applied. And then other people from the Pacific said that, oh, we never get a fellowship. So I'm not quite sure where the gap is there, but it's something we have to work on, improving the outreach so that we get more people from the Pacific region to take advantage of our fellowship program. Thank you to Aftab Siddiqui and Rupesh Shrestha for being fellowship committee chairs and helping with putting all that program. And also thank you for the fellowship committee for doing reviews. Even though we had to filter many of the reviews, there's still a lot of very good applications that the committee had to select. And congratulations to all the fellows for being successful. What's next? Thank you to the whole team, Internet Association Australia and IX Australia for being such a wonderful host. Although we're a very different setup from when Gavin Tweedy was at Western Australia Internet Association and pretty much had to do everything with the whole team. APRICOT now has its own team doing the organization work, but it's vital to have a host who helps us with a lot of the local logistics, reaching out to the local community, which IA has done very well, and with handling the local infrastructure here in Melbourne and with the ISP connectivity. I would like to thank Abby for all the coordination work and local support in Melbourne. Thank you, Terry, for leading the technical team that was planning the network infrastructure and working with Extreme to give us this conference network that we had today. I don't know if any of you noticed, these access points are using the new 802.11ax standard. Don't know if anybody has devices that can actually use it, but anyway, these are the brand new APs. If you're more interested about the conference network and some of the learnings and lessons and challenges and statistics, Terry did his report during the lightning talk session. So that should be on the website if you want to have a look at that. Pardon me. After 2 weeks of being in air conditioning, my throat is really dry, so apologize for being a little bit hoarse. I'd like to thank co-organizers, APNIC. APNIC has a very special role in the delivery of APRICOT. APNIC has been standing by APRICOT since the beginning. David was the Director General, one of the co-founders, and the whole APNIC team has been part of delivery of this and production of this event ever since. So we really appreciate the support of the entire APNIC team who, yes, sorry, no international travel for you this time, but the short trip down to Brisbane to Melbourne, I hope it was well worth it for the Queenslanders amongst us to enjoy. As others have observed, Melbourne's interesting and varied weather. When we were here this time last year, thereabouts, it was 40-something degrees. So we're kind of not quite sure what temperature we would have to deal with here. We didn't quite expect it to be a Queensland midwinter, but anyway, this is what we have. Hope you all had fleeces or managed to go shopping for suitably warm clothes. Moving onwards, I would like to recognize Molly Cheam, the APRICOT event organizer, for all the hard work to make this event reality. I always get into trouble for mentioning Molly's name, so I'm going to get really into trouble now. Molly has been producing APRICOT since 2001. She's been one of the longest-served members of the team here. I mean, firstly, she was doing it in her leadership role at PCOM, when PCOM was the secretariat for basically APIA and onwards being APRICOT. And of course, more recently as a member of the team at APNIC. So I just want to call out Molly, special recognition for really doing such a fantastic job to still have this amazing event after all these years. Much appreciated. Sorry. Yeah, I think the hand sanitizer wouldn't be very good for this. So I'd like to show appreciation for Molly for doing that. There's something else that you probably don't know. Any of you know when Zoe first turned up at an APRICOT? I think Zoe's been turning up at APRICOT pretty much since Molly has been there. So it's a very clever approach. She's got a succession planning, which I was talking about at the event last night. I was looking towards the younger generation. So from the event organization point of view, I think Zoe knows the system as well as Molly does for producing APRICOTs. So I don't know, maybe Molly, one year you want to relax, sit back, and let Zoe produce the whole thing. Don't think anyone would even notice. So Molly's getting younger every day. So, but no, thank you so much, Molly, and also Zoe for your just for your amazing support, and well, long may it continue. I'd also like to thank Tommy and John in the APRICOT Secretariat for their time and efforts to make the event run smoothly as well. They're the team you've seen behind the desk, giving you things, taking money from you, and so forth. I'd also like to call out John to thank him for coordinating and managing the 25th APRICOT party. It was kind of delegated to him at almost the last minute to really work smoothly with the Plaza Ballroom team. And yeah, well, you saw the results last night. It was a pretty special event for all of us. So thank you, John, for doing that. I know I'm going to miss things out, but anyway. Thank you to the Crown Promenade Hotel, finally, for being a great venue. The venue really makes these things work. For the helpful, friendly staff, especially Jenny Barlow in the early times when we're scouting around the venue and explaining to her our bizarre requirements and so forth. But she said yes to almost everything with a smile. Well, no for one or two things, but it was mostly yes, which we really appreciate. And then more recently, Annie Sipu, who is our events manager, for always being willing to assist, always with a smile, and always there when we actually needed them. So the whole Crown Promenade team have been very good, very helpful, and really a pleasure to work with. I'd also like to thank James Thompson and the team at Encore for all their technical infrastructure support. Again, nothing was too much trouble for them, and we really appreciate being able to work with a good team like that. So it has really been a pleasure working here in the venue over the time. Otherwise, I need to thank you all for having the confidence that we could deliver the event. Having received requests to cancel this APRICOT or move it to another country or delay it to later in the year, especially after we make commitments to actually hold the event. We really appreciate all of you for coming here. Those of you who are ready to leave and move on to your next destination. With so much uncertainty worldwide with the current Wuhan coronavirus, with events being cancelled all over the place for, well, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but basically for almost no reason whatsoever. I really do appreciate everything that all of you have done, giving us our support, and coming here for this APRICOT. So I'm sure I've missed somebody out for thanking. I should thank Mark for being MC, but that means I don't have to shuffle bits of paper and certificates to give and so forth. So one thing, we need to do a few things better next year, and one of them we realize is, in recent years, we've only announced the next APRICOT at the current one, which is actually pretty bad. We never want to do that. We were meant to be in Fiji this year, but 2 weeks before we were going to announce it in Daejeon, the hotel sent us an email saying, pretty much, "Hi Philip, we're going to redevelop the hotel during your event. Sorry," and that's how it ended up. So we had a pretty rapid, not quite panic, but it was certainly a big effort to move here, trying to find a venue as a backup. The venue here in Melbourne was actually planned if Fiji didn't work out, but there were no reservations or bookings or anything like that. So we're shoehorned in between, 3 conferences before we got here, and there's a big one starting tomorrow here as well. So that's why it's a funny timing and funny kind of room layouts and so forth, because Crown is a very, very popular conference venue. So I do promise you that next year we're going to try and announce APRICOT 2022 and 2023. And given 2024 is back in the Pacific, Fred Christopher and Savi Vokia basically got 4 years' notice that we're coming to Fiji. Please sort the venue out so that we can actually come there. So put that one in your diaries. Fred's still here, Savi's still here, but so you have on notice we are coming, so we really do need to make sure that we have the venue available. Next year, we will announce, as I say, 2022 and 2023. But we need to announce 2020, so we need to announce 2021. But I'll let Archie do that because he's a very good selfie, whatever, and he's just luxuriating on his new role as member of the APNIC EC, so he can do a better job than me.
Thank you, Philip. Most likely you have an idea where it is now. Oh, maybe it's this flag, but before other details, may I request the team to play the AVP? Thank you.
more fun. Philippine Islands. It's more fun in the Philippines. It's more fun in the Philippines. Philippine Islands. It's more fun in the Philippines.
Thanks again. I hope we have fun. I'm going to give additional details. So the venue for next year is going to be at Conrad Hotel. So it's in Manila. And it's close to Manila Bay. It's also close to, I think, the biggest mall in Asia. We call it Mall of Asia. So you can get lost inside and then enjoy the view after that when you are outside. Next, please. We also want to offer you local and exotic experience. So besides the drinks, you can try out the middle one. It's called Isao. It's good with beer, I guarantee it. And after a lot of beer, you might want to try out balot, the top part. It's the egg. It's a duck embryo. At least I have very good reactions here compared to the previous one. And then if you don't want, we have lechon. So that's definitely good. Next, please. And in terms of flights, so the closest one is Manila International Airport. But if you really want to travel far from Manila, you can go to Clark. But I suggest that will be the last resort. And for some countries, we would require visas. So you want to check that out. But first, please try to book on Manila International Airport. Lastly. And for that one, I would like to invite you to come to Manila, but we say it in Manila as Likana. So it's written on my shirt. And to invite you further, because we want to have more fun in the Philippines, this has to be done. Let's do a selfie. Okay. All right. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, we're good. Thanks again, and inviting you.
Thank you so much. Manila for me was 2009, so it would be lovely to be back there. Just a reminder that we do have reading glasses from last night. Still don't know whose these are. I could probably go with them, but they probably won't fit. Head's too big. So, yeah, please see me or Molly or Zoe to pick them up. And then also, at the Kentic stand, there was a pair of Bose headsets. those weren't giveaways. So if you took them perchance, please return them to Kentic. I'm sure they'd appreciate that. Tonight's social is at the Eureka 8-9. Please don't forget to pick up tickets if you haven't already from Molly or Zoe this evening, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you all very much. It's been awesome. I'm heading back to South Africa tonight, but I will get pictures of the party tonight while I'm in flight, probably. I'll miss you all, and thank you once again.